Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Grow Clinic podcast. My name is Dr. Kuro, and today we have our very first female guest, Leila Tomasone, who is a relationship coach, and we'll discuss why every man needs a woman and vice versa, male and female polarity, problems with relationships in the West, how femininity benefits men and the society, how to prepare for a relationship, common relationship ruiners, and how to keep your marriage divorce proof. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Hi Leila, welcome to the Grow Clinic podcast. How are you doing today, Leila?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. You guys need to see Leila in person. This isn't a video. this this isn't a video podcast, but she looks very nice.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. You're just lying.
So do you mind
Thank you.
telling us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So yeah, my name's Leila Tomasone. I'm a dating and relationship mentor, and I'm mostly a mom and a wife. And so I have two girls from my first marriage, and they're 15 and almost 12. And yeah, I just really came about this with a long path through some really bad relationships. So I could tell you all about what not to do. And then just after my first marriage dissolved very dramatically, I knew I needed to get my act together for my girls and find a really great guy. So it was kind of like a process of like working backwards to figure out what I needed to do. Didn't know who he was, but I knew I needed him, and just kind of reconstructing all of that from scratch. I totally nerded out on psychology, just everything I could find on the subject, and transformed myself and my life, and was able to find my husband. They're amazing ever since. We've been married about 3.5 years.
So what transformation did you yourself to actually find this?
Yeah, great question. So the main thing, or at least like the starting point, was my outside appearance. Yeah. Like well, you can't tell by looking at me right now because I just got back from the gym, but I did just kind of revamp everything. I had come from sort of like a hippie, like I have no idea what I'm doing with my hair or, style or anything. And I was very, very soft. Like I wasn't doing any kind of hard exercise at the time. And I delved into that. Like I got into fasting and intermittent fasting, and I joined to run Spartan races. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but they're like obstacle course races. And then some of them are really, really long endurance races. And that gave me so many different things. I can go into the aspects of what that did. But yeah, I really started with my appearance, and there's so much discipline that goes into that. Like people, like it's not just superficial, it's not just skin deep, it's what you have to change underneath to make it look like there's something happening, and people see you a whole new way, and they never knew that there was a different me before, but all the work that went into that really kicked things off.
Aside your appearance, what did you have to change inside?
Yeah. So I needed to learn discipline for sure. Like a lot of relationships and just being successful in life is like learning how to, the marshmallow test. Have you ever heard that? Like with the kids, where you get more if you just wait and you just can have a little patience and a little discipline. And I really needed to build that muscle up. I had that discipline muscle really needed some work. So I found that in the intermittent fasting and the working out. But also in relationships, like you have to wait for that intimate, juicy stuff, right? You have to put in the work to vet people and make sure you're on the same page of what you're working towards before you get to the comfort and the affection and what everybody wants to, like, not be lonely, right? Like you want somebody who's there, and you can call someone up and like have somebody there right away, but that's not going to get you what you want in the long term. So you have to be willing to forego the short term for the long-term rewards. And aside from that, and I think we're going to get into it a little more, is like the masculine feminine polarity. Like really, you know, that was something I dug into with understanding relationships and what I had been missing in sort of like the backwards politics and stuff just wasn't lining up. And I realized that, oh, I really am a woman deep down, and I should probably try to embrace that instead of denying that there's differences.
So what are these differences?
So what are the differences? Well, I really love the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Do you know that book?
I haven't heard of it.
It's a classic. Like, I had actually seen it, like, I believe during my first marriage, if my memory serves. It's been around for years. So like, I don't know when, like 1980 or something like that. But when I first came across it, I was not ready for that information. Like, he describes like men are like rubber bands and women are like waves. You know, we go in these cycles where like men pull away and then they come back, and women like go up and down on our like sort of monthly emotional cycle, right? But I really like how he explains our differences in communication styles and like what love versus respect means. Like, women, we really, really just live for love and want love. Like, that's what we want. But men really want to be respected and needed, like to be useful, right? And so understanding that those aspects of us, and all aspects of us, just fit together like the yin and yang, you know, visual, just so perfectly. So, you know, something I found working with women is, and just from my own history, is like, we want something, and so we like give that thing to try to get it back. And it's like, you know, and we feel guilty when we get what we want, so it's like we have to give more, you know, and that really like pushes away the juicy, like complementary aspect of masculine and feminine. I that sounds kind of vague, so maybe we can hone in on some details if you want.
You can do that. You can do that. I'm all ears.
So maybe I can give an example. So have you heard of like the 5 love languages? That's pretty popular. So if you do that quiz, like what's really popular or common for women is that we like to receive gifts. We feel loved when we get gifts, and when someone does something for us, acts of service, right? And that's another thing, like back to the John Gray, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Men, when they see a job being done, no matter how badly it's being done, they feel it's disrespectful to jump in and help, right? And I'm putting air quotes around help. But women are opposite and see if somebody's doing a job and struggling, like that it's loving to jump in and help them and like take some burden off their shoulders. So very, very often we want acts of service done for us because that makes us feel loved. But then we think in order to get that we just, I just need to do more for him so he can see how great it is to get things done for you, and then he'll do things for me, like, you know, mowing the grass or like filling up the car, like taking out the garbage, right? Women, I say it's my right as a married woman to doubt again. And I'm not going to feel guilty for it. And it's like, well, women kind of think, well, if I just take out the garbage, he'll see how it's done and he'll learn how to do it the way I want it done, right? But that is absolutely not the case. Men think if you're doing it, you got it under control, and it would be disrespectful of me to jump in there and handle it for you, right? Does that make sense? Is that true for you?
Yeah, it actually does.
Yeah. So as women, we'll try to compensate for not getting what we want by doing more and just exhausting ourselves, where what we really need to do is lean back and be for anything and everything, and just be enthusiastically, you know, when we receive, and then he gets that dopamine hit, like, oh, I was useful. oh, I made her happy. And then
Yeah.
he does it more, and we get more of what we want. But instead, it's so often like she's just exhausted, and he's like, well, she doesn't need me, I'll just sit on the couch and watch football. And then he doesn't feel useful, and then we just grow apart, and then that's very, very sad.
Yeah. I think is wrong with relationships in the
In the West. Yeah. Well, like I said, thinking that you need to do more of what you want, that's a huge issue. Like, well, like money, for example, right? Like, men are excellent at providing and building resources and building wealth and financial assets and everything, and women think, well, if I want a man who's good at that, then I need to be good at that too, and I need to be this big powerful career person. And she puts off relationships, and she puts off marriage, and she puts off kids, and goes and builds a big career, and then she's surprised she can't find a guy who's more successful than her, that wants what she has to offer. And it's like, well, a guy that you want successful than you doesn't care how much money you make. He doesn't want you to be strong and independent, right? Yeah. He wants to provide for somebody that actually needs him in some way. And that's not to say you can't make any money as a woman. Like, I'm not saying that at all, but you do need to understand how polarity works. So maybe I'd go back to the polarity.
Somebody who can provide, women need somebody who can about what men want. What do women want in that regard?
Well, women want a man who's going to provide and protect and lead her. And they're very surprised that the way to find that and build that, because you don't just like find somebody who's like going to do everything you want. Like, you have to build that dynamic between you, both by the way you behave together and act together. So like, you could have your high-powered career job, but if you come to the dating scene as a soft, receptive woman, then you're going to get your chair pulled out for you, and you're going to get the door open for you. And it's like, those are like small things, but they could seem small, I guess, but they really do make us feel special. So women really do want to feel special. And when a man, buys dinner or says, I got you, babe, you don't need to work so hard, like that kind of thing, that makes us feel good.
Chivalry is not dead.
Yeah. It's on its last legs. I knock on wood, I hope that doesn't happen, but it's not dead yet.
Yeah, I think it's coming back up, because there's a rising time, like we are going back in time to like go like understand our roles as men and women and what we should do. So I'm happy about what's happening and all of that. So what's proper femininity helps the society?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So if we are, completely complementary, and what we have and to offer is like exactly the opposite of each other, then so men being good at providing and protecting and building, women are good at receiving that, or need to be. Like, that's what femininity is. It's the essence of femininity is receiving. And just receive. And it almost sounds like a dirty word nowadays in our culture. Like, it's always, I always heard growing up, it's better to give than to receive, right? Well, who are you going to get to if nobody's going to receive? That's an important role. And as a feminine wife, my husband is so grateful to me for receiving, because now he's achieving in a way he never thought possible. He by having the weight of marriage and kids and family on his shoulders, that's caused him to excel and really build himself up 3 or 4 times what he was when I met him. And he's that, and it's so hard for people to accept that that's a important role, but I really believe it is.
Yeah, do you feel you're saying in essence that the brunt of providing and leading, it makes them better men?
Yeah. And who are they going to provide for? And what are they building for if not a son who's going to receive gratefully and give him children to create a legacy? Like, right? I mean, and you don't, and that's where like Jordan Peterson's coming from, right? Is like, you need responsibility to feel like a useful, productive man, right? And so who's gonna help you do that but someone who's like, yeah, you got this, I want to see you do well.
So at a man's life, do you think it is right, or is bringing a woman as your wife or something?
That's a great question too. I have a guy client who's single. He's felt like he's sort of been on like a treadmill for like 10 years or so in his career. And so he's felt like completely directionless. And so now it's like we're focusing on building himself up. But at the same time, you just need to get to the point where you can confidently say, like, I know where I want to be. Like, I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. And I'm happy to have that goal. Because if you wait too long, like, you're going to lose your momentum. You're going to, you can grow so much faster with someone on your side. If that makes sense.
So are you saying men should be their works in progress and not already made products?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It actually makes sense now, since you said women like to use a work in progress. It accelerates their growth.
Yeah. And you have to be careful with that, because a lot of women fall into the trap of like, oh, he has so much potential. Like, I know he's so smart. He can do so many great things, but he's like, shooting himself in the foot constantly, and like, she's like doing his laundry and like driving him to work. And she's like, he's got so much potential, but it's not happening. So you have to be careful with that you're actually inspiring him to achieve and not enabling him. You know what I'm saying?
So you like to differentiate between inspiring him to achieve and enabling him. Like, do you want to explain that?
Right. Explain that? Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess where that comes into play is like, what are your standards as a woman for a relationship? And we all know, like, men are the gatekeepers of the relationship and women are the gatekeepers of sex, right? And so you need to have that, that awareness of yourself that I want marriage and kids. And so we need to be headed that direction, or else, I'm going to keep looking, right? And what women will do to enable instead is they'll close off all their options, stop dating other people, or have sex and become intimate too soon, and then they're latched onto somebody that doesn't have plans to marry them, doesn't have to really rise to the occasion. And I'm always telling women, you need to let him be your knight in shining armor. Some dragon, way too much like smoothing everything over and making it look pretty, instead of letting him solve way into her heart. Does that make sense?
It actually does. So what are some things men and women have to do to prepare themselves for relationships?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. Well, I mean, I think just like women need to have standards, men need to have standards too. Yeah. So it, like when I first to my guy client I was just telling you about, he was like, I don't know if I really want to get married. Like, is that, I don't know if I need that. I just want a good relationship. And I'm like, yeah, but do you want like the mediocre woman that you're just like okay with coming home to? Or do you want that woman that just inspires you and lights you on fire and you can't live one single second without her in your life? Then if that's your standard, you're going to put a ring on it, right? Like, you're going to make sure that she's not going off somewhere else. And so so that's kind of standard, I think. But another thing that my husband did really well was not gonna he was not going to date a woman that was kind of like desperate or clingy, or like he called it like wide-eyed, like, you know, like she was like a fangirl or something, you know, like that was not going to work. And if you know yourself well enough to reject, you know, substandard relationships, then you know, I think that's like the biggest thing.
So it's all self-evaluation. You have to do a lot of self-digging, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what you'll find when most people, when they try to what kind of relationship they want, at least, I mean, this was definitely true of myself, is like, oh yeah, I want that, but like, do I deserve it? Am I worthy of it? Like, can I really ask for that? Seriously, this is what women find in particular when they think, oh yeah, I would love a guy who's completely devoted to me and would never look at another woman. But how's that ever going to happen? How's that possible? Like, I'm just like a plain Jane, you know what I mean? So what we find when we look at what kind of relationship we want is we need to feel worthy of that. And that's really tricky.
So let's go back to your relationship, your previous relationship. What are some common mistakes you make in the relationship that ruins the relationship?
That ruins the relationship?
Yeah.
Well, definitely on the women's side, doing too much and getting exhausted by just trying to take responsibility of everything, and like, you know, oh, I need to fix it and make it look good. That doesn't give him an opportunity to conquer or any challenges. You know, you need to be coming to him with your challenges and say, look, I've tried to figure this out, and it's, you know, it's really upsetting to me, I'm overwhelmed, or whatever those feelings are, and see what he does. Let him you know, take the reins on some stuff. So that would definitely be a big one. I did that for sure. Like trying to make money and raise kids at the same time. It's exhausting. And what men do touches their relationship a lot that I see is they'll think, oh, like they hear all this masculinity stuff that they need to be leading, right? And then they'll be like, well, I tried that, she didn't want me to. And it's like, wait a minute, if you're going to be in charge, like, you don't need anybody's permission to do that, right? Like that's the antithesis. Going to get permission to be in charge is a contradiction in terms, right? And so it's like, it's not about asking if what you know should do or if it's right or not. It's about being decisive and being responsible, the responsibility for the consequences of those decisions.
So are there other things people need to do? Because I feel like there are more, because the YouTube video you made previously about the seven things to make your relationship, you talked about 7 points. So would you mind explaining?
Well, I'll have to refresh my memory. That was like, I don't know if I have it here. Oh yeah, here we go. I did go over that, right? Foresight and ability to resist the most natural and destructive, or we talked about that a little bit, like how you know, you have to forego the short-term satisfaction, like the dopamine hits and the things that they feel good in the moment, in order what you really. And so I think that is like, I want the comfort now. And for men, it's probably like, I want the sex now, maybe. So we kind of feed into our worst impulses.
Delayed gratification. I feel like it boils down to your discipline a lot. Like, sustaining a relationship boils down to your discipline. How disciplined are you to let go of like temporary pleasures for long term?
Yeah, definitely. And you're going to attract somebody that's on the same level as you. So if you're really bad at foregoing short-term pleasures, then you're going to attract somebody who's got the same level of discipline. That's going to be a mess.
Yeah. So I think that's why it's important. Be your best version of yourself before you attract someone else. So this is me answering the question I asked you the other time about when it's the right time to marry. The right time to marry, I think, is when you feel like you're the best version. Now begs the question, are you ever the best version of yourself?
Right. Well, and that's, you have to be careful of that, because like you may be the best version of yourself compared to all previous versions of yourself.
Yeah.
But you're not the best version of yourself of your whole lifetime, because you're going to keep getting better. And you need to really, and this is hopefully on here, maybe it's not on here, but I definitely believe one of the main ways that you can ensure a divorce-proof marriage is that you have the correct definition of commitment. Like I said about like finding a man who's building and he's still got a little ways to go. As a woman, like you need to find him on that upswing, but not at the peak, if that makes sense, right? And and that's so, like, for a lot of reasons, like it's so gratifying as a woman to be part of that and to have your husband be like, wow, I couldn't have done this without you, as opposed to this ready-made perfect guy he needs you for. He's but your definition of marriage and commitment needs to include growing and changing together, and not thinking that, oh, well, I'm the best version of myself, you're the best version of yourself, well, we'll just stay the same that way together in our marriage. And that's absolutely not going to work. Like I said, if you're in the best version of yourself as compared to all previous versions, well, as a couple, you're going to reach new heights, and you have to, but there's going to be some lows in there too. And so if you think you're getting into this, have this beautiful white sexy rich husband, like there you are missing, because you're going to have to fight for all, achieving all of what you want, and that includes like losing jobs and death in the family and like illness and all these things that you have to be willing to overcome together. So if you don't come to the marriage with that under, it's going to go wrong.
What are some other, let's talk about the 7?
Okay, sure. So next one I have is wisdom of the anxiety and pain points for men versus women. So understanding yourself as a member of your gender, like that's really important, because when I learned, men are much better decision makers. They're good at like being decisive and like forgetting any past doubts, and that made me feel better as a woman to be like, well, that's not my strength, whereas I thought it was just a defect of my personality specifically, that I wasn't very decisive. But knowing that that's sort of a normal feminine trait, and that we're more flowy and we change our mind more, it's like, oh, then I'm not really abnormal, right? So but also I need to understand that I'm tempted to do too much. I'm tempted to enable him. I'm tempted to, blame him when things go wrong. And if you know that that's your tendency as a man or a woman, then you understand how to compensate for that, and be like, oh, okay, well, I need to come to him with sort of a humble heart and say, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? As opposed to, oh, this is messed up and it's your fault, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, this also boils down to what you talked about, polarity. When men and women actually help each other in the sense that like in the area of decision making, how women come up with different opinions, they have different ideas and opinions, like, and men are the better decision makers. So when a woman has four ideas. She might have one idea now, and that one will come up, and that one will come up, and that one will come up.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll be confessed she needs a man, without any doubt, basically.
Right. Yeah. And then that's, where again, as a woman, I might still doubt, even though he chose something.
Yeah.
Like it might not compute exactly. Oh, he just made a decision for me. And I'm like, well, we haven't thought about this thing or whatever. And like, it's like, no, I need to shut that down and be like, no, we're following what he said, and we'll try it out. If something doesn't work, we'll figure it out. But yeah, I like how you explained that.
Let's move on.
Sure. So, so I talk a little testing when you're dating, and this is another like fall into a lot. I think it's like, I heard a good analogy once. It's like, are you building a relationship together? Are you building the foundation for a marriage? Like if you're building like a house together, who's putting all the bricks on there? Is it just one person, or are you both, equally putting in bricks? Because a lot of women, I think, we get on like the first date, or we like see a guy on paper and he looks, and is like, oh, he looks perfect. Like, great, sign me up. And then she's all in. And he's like, wait a minute, like, I haven't even done anything yet. Like, she doesn't let him make the investment into the relationship that he needs to make to feel like he's earned his place there. And then he's just totally turned off and is gone. So letting him invest in the relationship gradually and step it up gradually is so important. That's him leading. If you don't let him do that, you don't have the polarity that you want.
That makes sense. Feminism and the traditional. Are you Are you feminist?
Am I a feminist? I don't call myself a feminist. No, I don't really like labels in general. So not necessarily anything against feminism, but I just don't like myself a feminist. No.
Yeah. So do you think feminists and the traditional wives, do you think a traditional wife can be a feminist?
I've seen it. I mean, because like anybody can call themselves anything. Like they don't have to have the same definition as you to use the word. You know what I mean? So it's something I've seen too much of is that an older generation, I mean, like not any particular generation or age, but they'll do things that work, like get married and have kids and, let the husband provide most of the income and that kind of thing. And then completely disregard the value that's had in their lives, and then tell the younger generation, you don't need that. And then, but that's not what they lived out. And so we kind of have to be careful to like watch what people do. Oh, okay. So yeah, I was just saying, like, if someone calls themselves a feminist, but they have like a happy marriage and a great family, then maybe we need to look more at like their actions than their words.
So do you think feminists are getting it wrong? Like the upcoming feminists, the younger ones, that I feel like feminism today are just women who are hurt by an ex or something, and it's just the movement. So what do you think the solution to that is?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can only help people who want to be helped, right? Like I can't really change people that don't want to hear what I have to say. But if they have pain and sadness and loneliness in their life, then maybe eventually they'll listen to someone who tells them that it can be different, that things can be better. And if you show them, really, that's really all you can do is show them by your own life and hope that looks attractive. Like you have to make it so attractive that they want to. That's all you can do, I think.
Right. So The last question. You said you've been in a relationship. You've been with, now you're married. How do you know you're with the one? How This is for my listeners. My listeners are younger people. How you're with the one and that this person is the right partner for you and will last in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing I would say is, and this is what I did, is I wrote a list of what I needed in my partner. And you have to look deeply at that list. Like, it can't be numbers like height and income. It actual needs in the relationship. So this is the example I always use, is like height. Like, you want a tall guy. Well, why? Well, because it makes me feel small and feminine. Why is that important to feel small and feminine? Well, it makes me feel safe if he's big and strong and he can protect me. Oh, you want to feel safe. Okay. So I would put on my list, he makes me feel safe. Like, I feel safe him, and by his actions and by his words, that I know that I'm getting safety in this relationship. So that's the first thing I would do, is write that list, but like, ask yourself why a couple of times, like a few times, to make sure you're getting at the root of why and why they're important in the relationship. And then, and so like, hopefully, usually for a woman that would include that he's leading. And so you need to be letting him lead so that you know he's capable of that and that he wants to do that. You can't expect that to flip and you've already gone backwards in the dating process. So you really have to act through things that you're looking for. And so that's what I try to do, is give people the process that will ensure that happens, because they'll be like, well, how can I find out if he's honest or not? Like, if I ask him a question, he can just lie, right? And I'm like, well, it's why you don't find what you're looking for by statements coming out of their mouth. You find it by the actions that you're stepping through in the dating process. And that's what I teach. And then the other like, that you would have vows that really encompass, like I was saying, what is the true definition of marriage and commitment. And that is, we're not going to ever talk about divorce. We're not going to ever make that an option. And that we're going to fight for our relationship to be the best it can be forever.
That's a lot of value you dropped. Well, Leila, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to the show. You're like the first woman on my podcast. I've interviewed about 15 people, and you're like the first
I'm
woman.
honored.
And and it has been a really exciting conversation. And you lived up to the hype of being the first woman on the podcast. So where can people find you on the internet?
So on Twitter, I'm at Limitless Leila, and my name is spelled Leila. And I'm on Facebook, Leila Tomasone, and I'm on Instagram at Limitless Leila as well.
All right. Thank you, Leila. Thanks for coming to the show. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming this far. My name is Tochko Koro. Find me on Twitter at Growth Clinic. Growth Clinic with 2 C's at the end. Or check my website at tochkokoro.com.